This is our first session in these thematic networks. I will briefly, I don't want to lose more time, but I will briefly introduce myself. I'm Luís Mira da Silva, and I'm a partner of Consulae. And we are in Consulae coordinating the WP7, which is the relationship with the projects, flagship initiatives and policymakers. And I'm here at Consulae. I'm together with Maria Mendonça. We are coordinating the project, the Climate Farm Demo project in Portugal. And Maria is also the coordinator of the thematic networks and of the thematic network of water. So this is the first, our first session. We decided to do these sessions in 1 hour, so to keep it short and close to the focus, to keep them short and to keep them focused. So in this first session, we decided to invite Professor Rodrigo Proença de Professor Rodrigo Proença de Oliveira, who is he's a professor at it's called the Instituto Superior Técnico, so Technical Institute of the University of Lisbon, which is the biggest university in Lisbon and I think in Portugal. I know him from not for a long time, but for some time, and I heard him in maybe 2 or 3 times already talking about water and climate change, and so we decided to invite him because I think he's one of the specialists that we have in Portugal working in this field, and he nicely said yes. So we have him with us today, and I'll pass him the word in a minute. Then after his presentation, which should last, Maria, tell me if I said something wrong, but I think it will last, it will take 15 minutes, 15-20. And then we have 3 testimonies from 3 different pedoclimatic clusters. So 3 testimonies, hopefully linking the presentation with their own realities, yeah, in 3 different places in Europe. And then we hope to have some time for some Q&A session in the end, and we will moderate it. So I think that's it. I know I have to also introduce briefly the Climate Farm Demo project because some people are not participants in the project. But the Climate Farm Demo project has started 2 years ago, and it will last for 7 years. It's an European project with a lot. It's a big European project with about 120 maybe projects, partners. Sorry, 18. So it's like a really big project, and focused on climate smart and carbon. But the idea is to demonstrate, to implement, demonstrate, and adopt agricultural practices that are capable of increasing the climate resilience of the farms. We have these thematic areas, and within these thematic areas, there is one dedicated to water. We have, I think, 15 or 16 thematic areas, then sector areas, but we'll have like sessions specialized in each thematic. And actually, we decided to organize this week. We're starting today. I think it's the first one. Yeah, we're starting today with this knowledge exchange week, in which we'll have 1 session in each thematic. So if you are interested in other thematics, check the LinkedIn or check the website of the project, and you will find there other sessions like this, 1-hour sessions on specific thematics. The water management thematic area, we will have also these events, 2 per year, and we will exchange knowledge within a small group. So we have these public events, but also, like say, private events between the network. And the idea is to build capacity and exchange knowledge on these different topics. I don't want to take you more time because this is not the focus of the session today. The focus is to hear from Professor Rodrigo Proença de Oliveira first, and then have a discussion with all the group. and I'm really happy to see that we are already 70 people here. So, Professor Rodrigo Prensa de Oliveira, thank you very much for being here, and I will pass you the word now and give you 15 or 20 minutes if you need 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you are all listening. Is it fine? Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. And
Okay.
sorry, I was without camera, but I realized now, but I'm now turned on.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me. So I'm not an agriculture expert, I'm more a water expert, but I'm gladly going to present my views of water management in Portugal and the challenges of water management in Portugal. And obviously they are linked with the agriculture issue because 70% of water uses in Portugal are related to agriculture. Just to give you a broad idea of the water management challenge in Portugal. So this map shows you the precipitation, annual precipitation over the Iberian Peninsula. And you can see that in Spain, I mean, the amount of precipitation is quite low. And in Portugal, we have in the south also low precipitation, and then the high precipitation areas are more or less north of the Tagus River, which is the river that starts in Madrid and reaches Lisbon. So you have a quite strong spatial variability of precipitation, with also a very strong interannual and seasonal meteorological variability. So we have very short periods of rain and the long summers. And also we have years with high precipitation and years with low precipitation. That's our main challenge. And in addition, we share with Spain the largest river basins in the Iberian Peninsula, and also climate change is going to impact us together with Spain. So we have here a very that's the overall characteristic. This is some graphs that show you the temporal variability of annual availability. So the top left graph shows you how much water it runs in our rivers and recharges our aquifers in every month. In green, you have the Portuguese water resources, and in orange is the Spanish water resources that reach Portugal. And you can see there's a strong variability. 75% of the availability occurs in December to March. And on the bottom left, what you can see is the demand, and you can see that the higher demands are during the summer, where we have lower water availability. In the right graphs, what you see is some graphic image of how water availability changes with time. So it's, I mean, it doesn't really matter how much on average we have for water management, because the dry years are quite common, and during those dry years we have severely less water than on average conditions. In addition, we have other sources of asymmetries. We have aquifer systems, quite productive, some of them, but they are near the coast. So you have here our main aquifer systems, and you can see that it's near Aveiro and Coimbra, then the large Tagus aquifer, one of the largest in Europe, and a few in the south of Portugal. The interior of Portugal, it is what we call the old geological unit. They have very few productive aquifer systems, so we have to rely on surface water. And also the good soils to produce agriculture and the good conditions to produce agriculture are in the south of Portugal, where you have less water. So most of our irrigated lands are in the south of Portugal, where we do not have so much water. And this is just a couple of graphs that show you how we depend from the water resources that flow from Spain. So we have five river basins that are shared with Spain: Minho, Lima, Douro, Tagus, and Guadiana. The most important ones are the Tagus, Guadiana, Douro, Tagus, and Guadiana. So around 60% of our shared water resources come from Spain. We both rely on large reservoirs. So within these shared river basins, we have like 30,000 million cubic meters of water, of stored capacity in reservoirs. And the southern river basins mainly are severely modified because we have with all these reservoirs and all the water uses, so they are highly regulated. This is an example of this water stress index. Is an index that is used, a very simple index, is used all over the world. It's basically you divide the amount of water that you have by inhabitants on average terms. And if you look at Portugal position, it looks like a very enviable position. I mean, we have more water per capita than, for instance, Spain, obviously, but Germany, Poland, England, and so forth, and France. And so it may look like we are rich in water, but as a good example, in Algarve, in southern Portugal, we have much less water per capita than on average in the whole mainland. And in addition, obviously, these average conditions seldom occur. We have very frequently very dry years where the amount of water that we have is significantly less. A good example is the current drought, or not the current drought. Yes, actually, we could use the current drought. In 2021, 2022, Portugal, the whole Portugal suffered a severe drought, where at the end of the year, it rained less 400 millimeters than the average conditions. So in the left graph, you see in blue the normal conditions, let's say the average conditions, as it's a cumulative precipitation over the year. And you can see that in 2021 to 2022, it rained less 400 millimeters, which basically rained half of what is of the average conditions. So this was spread all over the country. It was a big problem in Portugal. Then that drought stopped in the north of Portugal, but went on in the south. So in the south, that's the top left, the right graphs. The drought went on, continued through 2022 to 2023, and even now there is a small region in Portugal, which is the western area of Algarve and the Mira river basin, where we still are on drought. So we are on the fourth or the third year of drought in that region. In the rest of Portugal, we are reasonably well after 2 years of drought, which is nice. So how this variability and how have we solved this? Well, by building reservoirs and by exploiting our aquifer systems. So currently we have in Portugal 14,000 million cubic meters of storage capacity, mostly in the Douro, the Tagus, Sado, and Guadiana. And also we have we don't use it, but we suffer also from the high regulation of the Spanish river basins that are shared with us, the Douro, Tagus, and Guadiana. So as I said earlier, rivers are highly regulated in the Iberian Peninsula. So, I mean, to manage this challenge, we need knowledge, data. And so this is just a summary of a large project I did for the environmental agency, which is the National Water Authority, where we tried to identify how much water we had in all the areas in Portugal. So we organized, we developed a model that computed aquifer recharge and river flows at every cell of 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. Together with that, we also assessed the water needs in Portugal. I mean, and we put up our estimate. It was very debatable, and now we are improving it. But people are arguing about this estimate, which is nice. because now we are getting some more data and we are trying to find a consensus of how much water we need in Portugal. Obviously, the most critical issue is how much water we need for agriculture, and I will discuss that in a moment. The final result of that project was this Water Exploitation Index Plus. It's an upgraded version of a scarcity index. It's promoted or defended by the European Commission. It's very hard to compute because it takes into account not only the amount of water that you have, but the capacity that you have in the river basins to store water in reservoirs and aquifer systems. So you have there the renewable water available water resources means the amount of water that flows in the river that recharge the aquifers, but also the ones that we stored in our reservoirs. And this is compared with the water needs. And the water needs also take into consideration the returns of to the nature after water being used. So it's a highly complex system, but we compute it, and this is a map of how scarce the water is in Portugal. And so this in the south you will see these darker colors which show that we have larger scarcity. And there's a big discussion now going on in Portugal how we should use this information, but basically it probably is going to condition how water is allocated in south of Portugal. So you have to be much more efficient in southern Portugal to allocate water, and this WAVE Plus index will be a basis for that. Those decisions on water allocation in all of Portugal, which means that in the south of Portugal they will be much stringent. Regarding climate change, well, the news are not good, obviously. I mean, we are in the region, in the Mediterranean region. You can see there in these maps where the expected reduction of precipitation is quite significant, around 10 to 30%, depending on the greenhouse gas scenarios that you are considering. This is the data from the last assessment report, so assessment report 6. So we have here the data for Portugal, for all the river basins in Portugal, and we are expecting a decrease from 10% to 15% related to the years of 1970 to 2012. And those years obviously already reflects some climate change. So, I mean, if you look at old conditions, let's say from the 50s and 60s in the Iberian Peninsula, I would say that we are already experienced something like probably 10% of precipitation reduction, and that reduction will go on. This is the scenario for the medium scenario regarding the greenhouse gases emission, and this is a more extreme scenario regarding the greenhouse gases emissions. And in addition to this reduction of precipitation, what we will see is that reduction will mainly occur in the south of Portugal, where we already have less precipitation. So northern Portugal will go on being the wetter and the region in Portugal, which will be less affected by climate change. And also there's a trend towards a shorten of the winter. So this problem that we have in Portugal of having a short winter and a large dry season that nowadays encompasses fall, the fall, the spring, encompasses spring, the summer and fall. That trend towards shorter wet seasons will go on. So that's a big concern for us. So regarding water demands, I mean, we estimate that we consume or we use around 5,800 million cubic meters of water, and 70% of that value is for irrigation. There's also thermal electricity, and urban users are the second largest users. We also produce hydropower, water for hydropower generation, but that's a non-consumptive use. Water does not leave the river. You have here our estimates of water demands and divided by our river basins, and the ones on the left are the southern river basins. So 5A is the Tagus River Basin, 6 is the Sado, 7 is the Guadiana, and 8 is the Algarve. Number 3 is Douro, which is high because of the hydropower. We have lots of hydropower production in the Douro River Basin. The irrigated river area in Portugal is around 560,000 hectares, distributed to more or less half between temporary crops and permanent crops. And I will explain later on the trend towards permanent crop is occurring. So we have here the evolution in the last 10 years. And basically, irrigatable area and irrigated area has increased significantly, mostly in Alentejo and Algarve. There's a major project that was entered into operation in 2000, which is the Alqueva project, and that added 150,000 hectares to our irrigated land, and that brought a huge wealth to that region. That's definitely something we have to recognize, wealth, and also, I mean, that was a very poor region in Portugal, and now it's quite striving with the driving of that development. That region is definitely irrigation. That was possible due to the Alqueva system. But also the areas of permanent crops are increasing because of the added value of those crops. So now we have additional pressures that come from not only the increase of the irrigation areas, but also the increase of permanent crops, which leave us with a little less flexibility when managing the water. With temporary crops, annual crops, we could ask farmers not to irrigate in a certain year, and probably we could compensate them for taking that decision. But that's no longer possible when you have permanent crops, and also you have large investments in agriculture, mechanizations, all kinds of very strong investments. I mean, it's hard to ask a farmer not to produce in a single year. So now we are losing some flexibility in managing the water. Now, I'm coming to the end of my talk. Another issue that we have is the diversity of situations that we have. I mean, the number of crops that we cultivate is quite large, and willingness to pay for water for those crops is quite variable. I mean, some farmers argue that they can only pay values around 10 cents per cubic meter, while others accept they can pay 70 or even €1 for cubic meter. But then our tariffs in the agriculture system, the irrigation system that we have, are usually very low. The price is very low, and we are sometimes offering water at very low prices to farmers that have an ability to pay, which is much larger. And so we really have to deal with this issue to see how we can manage the irrigation systems better, because currently our public irrigation system are economically sustainable. They don't have revenue necessary to maintain the infrastructures. So I mean, the nice thing about this last drought that I was talking about, is that it put water in the center of the public discussion in Portugal. Everybody's talking about water, which is great. We do not agree on what we should do, obviously, but at least we are talking about. And there are a couple of things that we agree, that we accept that there's a lot of inefficiency in many of our urban systems, but also on our irrigation systems. That inefficiency usually is about water supply system, not much about the irrigation system itself, although there is still also some inefficiencies in the irrigation system themselves. So we have to work on that. We also have to control demands. We need to control better the water demands. I didn't mention, but around 50% of water for agriculture comes from groundwater, and it's very hard to control how much you abstract from groundwater systems, for aquifer systems. So we need to make it happen. And also we are now investing a lot in wastewater reuse and desalinization. We are building a large desalinization plant in Algarve, but the problem in the agriculture is that the cost of these other sources of water is around 50 cents per cubic meter, and not all farmers may be willing to pay for that amount of water. In addition, and that's probably the most important issue, is that wastewater and desalinization are offered by the coast, and agriculture is far away from the coast. So the use of wastewater and desalinization for agriculture is very difficult, but we are going to try to do it whenever possible. And we are betting a lot on increasing storage capacity in small ponds, rising the existing dams, making some interconnections, and maybe some new reservoirs. A couple of new reservoirs are being proposed, but we have to make sure that they are viable given what climate change. Some of these new reservoirs, we have some reservoirs in Portugal that are completely empty, and I mean it's not the solution to build new reservoirs, because to cope with the water variability in Portugal may not be a good solution, because they may rest empty. So we have to double check if they are viable. There are a lot of issues about governance that we need to tackle also. Irrigation districts, we need to make it larger, or organize them and to make it more professional. And we need to really find a way to improve it, not only the water efficiency, so to reduce losses, but also to increase economic efficiency. Water has to be allocated to the uses that provide the largest benefits, being economical, financial, or even social. I mean, we have to accept that agriculture provides a social well-being in regions where probably it's the only economic activity that may be developed. So we have to evaluate those benefits and include them in this economic analysis of water sharing. And that's probably what we need to now to find a consensus among ourselves, is to discuss the economic model in Portugal to find. I mean, we know that the irrigation areas will increase in Portugal, because that's a way to cope with climate change. But how much? I mean, we have now 160,000 hectares. Some people argue that 1 million is the right number. But I mean, from 560,000 hectares to 1 million, that's a large range. So we have to develop tools to find the projects, or to identify the projects that should be developed, and to find ways of how to distribute costs, because we cannot expect the government to spend all that money for them to have private companies receiving the money from this investment. So we have to find ways of how to share costs, how much should the state should invest, and how much private companies should invest. So that's basically what I have to do. So the way forward, basically is integrating water resources management, and we have to to find a consensus through public policy, a debate on public policy. So that's basically what we are going on in Portugal. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, I was just trying to read this slide. Thank you very much. I think I will give just 1 minute or two to if anyone wants to go over this slide. I think it was like a very an excellent introduction of the whole thematic, because we will continue developing sessions on with the water within this water thematic. And I think this is like a very good starting because it's like a broad issue, and we have a lot to go on specific topics now. We now have, let me share my screen. Let me see if I can share my screen. Just a second. PowerPoint. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay. So we now have three short testimonies, we call it like that, from three let's say members of our thematic water network, and the idea is to hear from specific regions in Europe, and of course to link to the presentation that was done, and to understand if this in different regions in Europe we're facing similar issues, or if the situation is different, so to link to what is happening in other places in Europe. So we can start with András Sver from Hungary, and he's from Hungary. So we have four clusters in Europe, regional clusters, and the first one is this continental cluster. So András, are you there? You're there. I can see you. So please, András, if you can keep to 3 minutes. Thank you.
I try to do my best. Thank you so much, Maria and Luis, for inviting me to spend a few minutes to talking about the situation of the water management in Hungary, or the Carpathian Basin. It was a great presentation. Thank you so much, Professor Oliveira, that giving us a comprehensive picture of the Iberian reality. Indeed, there are some similarities between the Iberian and the Central European conditions. We are also very much affected by climate change. The distribution of precipitation is very heterogeneous in my country as well. In Hungary, there are significant differences between the west and the east part on this issue. In Hungary, the average annual rainfall is 500-800 millimeter, but there are brutal differences in the annual amount between our regions. The highest rainfall occurs between May and July, and the lowest between January and March. In Hungary, the average monthly precipitation amount vary between 30-70 millimeter. However, there have been cases, for example, in 2015, 83 millimeter fell in 1 hour in the middle of the country, near in Budapest. I would like to give another example. The weather in 2022 will be a memorable year for both agriculture and weather professionals, not only in our country, but also in whole Europe. Severe drought has very strongly developed. The first months of 22 saw a continuing of the poor precipitation of 21. From January to March, rainfall was less than half the multi-year average. April precipitation is some of the drought, although not uniformly across the country, but the negative temperature anomaly did not favor optimal crop development during the sowing season. However, from May until the end of the summer period, the drought situation continued and deteriorate, with the total water reserve in soil being depleted. In most part of the Great Plain, this is the east part of Hungary, the precipitation fell below 100 millimeter by end of August. It could be said that the worst drought in the 100 years has unfolded. The Carpathian Basin in the region at high risk from the impacts of climate change. The map of the precipitation change shows a significantly decrease in precipitation in the western Transdanubian region, while most of the Great Plain, this is the east part of Hungary, and some areas of the Transdanubia show an increase in the rainfall. Several studies has shown that the average temperature in Central Europe, the Carpathian Basin, are rising faster than the global average. The temporal and spatial distribution of precipitation is changing, and the usual climate patterns of which popular observation are being overtaken by events. These are the changes that are already noticeable. In the future, we should be prepared for increased the drought stress, not necessarily concentrated in the summer. The number, length, and the intensity of summer heat waves are also expected to increase. The number of days with the precipitation will decrease, but the proportion of the precipitation forms with higher intensity, such as rainfall, will increase, especially in summer, making it more difficult for our soils and thus vegetation to benefit from them. Agriculture is the sector which is the first to be confronted with the natural disaster or weather impact, and therefore the sector which must be the first to seek new perspectives and solutions in the spirit of adaptation. What solution can be used to address these challenges in Hungary? What is our opinion about that? Maybe not only our opinion and not only our way. The sustainable agricultural practices. Sustainable practices can help reduce the negative impact of climate change in the long term. This includes the use of tillage techniques, crop rotation, and organic fertilization. These practices not only improve soil quality but also contribute to increasing biodiversity. Diversification of plant varieties, varietal diversification, for example, growing different crops, reduce risk and increase crop safety. The selection of more resistant, drought-tolerant varieties also play a very crucial role. Improving water management. This is also essential. Modernizing irrigation system using water-saving techniques, recycling water can also contribute to reduce water use. Integrated pest management as well, soil protection or promoting soil conservation. Also essential for long-term agricultural production, erosion control, mulching and green manuring is also, and increasing soil biological activity also plays an important role in maintaining the soil fertility. To sum up, the climate change.
Andres, just a quick question because we have to move on, but very quick. Are you still investing in new dams and new irrigation systems? Are you increasing the area of irrigation?
Yes.
Or
yes. We are working on it, but the irrigated area in Hungary is very low, 1,010 hectares. The share of irrigated land in agriculture area has varied between 1 and 2 and the last 10 years. Nowadays is 2.2. This is quite low.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on because thank you, Andras. Very interesting. Let's move to our second testimony from Aaron Redman from the United Kingdom, and he's representing the Oceanic Cluster. Aaron,
hello,
are you there?
Sorry, I just have a couple of technical issues with my presentation. Can you just give me like 3 to 5 minutes? Can I go last instead? Is that right?
Yeah, but then you only have 3 minutes for the testimony.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, so let's
we
can go on with Amanda Alkvist from Sweden. Are you there? Yeah.
Yes. Hi.
Okay. So we can start with Amanda, and then we move to Aaron. Okay.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. And in Sweden, there are a lot of new weather conditions because of the climate changes. And in the beginning of the summer and the spring, there are more drought than usual. And then it's very hard because in the late summers there are usually more heavy rain instead. So the water management, you need more kind of irrigation, but also more other techniques to take away the heavy rain from the fields. So a lot of the same issues that you said before in Hungary. So yeah, it's usually more in the south than in the north of Sweden because we are a very long country. But the extreme weather is mostly in the south, but in the future it will gradually go more up. So yeah, I think I stop there.
Thank you very much, Amanda.
Thank you.
Like that, we save time. Aaron, are
Yeah.
you ready? Thank you.
You are muted, Aaron.
I think he's still getting his slides ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. That's perfect.
You see that?
Yeah, it is.
Yep. Brilliant. Okay, so yeah, 3 minutes. I'm just going to briefly cover the impact of climate change and water management in agriculture, our UK perspective, especially covering climate farm demo participant farms. Just to start off, so the UK, we basically, our water and precipitation levels get impacted by the Gulf Stream. So low pressure systems coming in from the Atlantic basically mean that the western side of the UK get a significantly more rainfall than the east side of England, and quite naturally that changes our landscapes, that changes what we are able to use our landscapes for and our agricultural management. So if you don't know this already, the east of England is generally our more arable temporary crop area, so that's where the majority of our arable food production is based. And then on the western side of the UK, it tends to be grassland systems, especially in the southwest. That's where we've got a lot of dairy systems, and then it also combines with our upland areas. So Scotland and Wales, in particularly, they tend to be more kind of like upland, grassland areas, sheep farming, small to medium farm enterprises, and mixed farms kind of in the middle as well. But that's a huge generalization, but a general average over UK farms. So the way that climate change impacts this is that we tend to have significant rainfall events in the middle and western side of the UK, but what we're finding is that we are starting to experience regional flooding events, and then also flooding events from high rainfall events in the upland areas going down into the catchment, and then we've got low-lying, highly productive arable areas, which are then getting impacted from increased rainfall from those upland areas. So this impacts, our growing seasons, especially when we're growing like winter wheat, and it influences agricultural sectors in different ways. So we, in the climate farm demo, we have a pretty good regional distribution. So we have we can get a good insight of farms in all of these different areas and how climate change is affecting them. So some of the impacts of climate change over the 23 to 24 winter season, we had the wettest 18 months ever recorded since records begun in the 1850s. This not only impacted saturation levels on ground, so livestock areas experiencing huge amounts of poaching and trafficability and the simple ability to have stock on land, but also impacted our arable areas significantly, where we've got those beautiful alluvial soils where we can grow winter crops, then being underwater for a significant amount of time, leading to termination of those crops and further reseeding. Then quite ironically and quite fittingly, in 2022 we had the second most severe drought in history. The only other drought to overweigh this is in 1976. And that basically affected our summer growing season. However, what we did find is that actually we had positive yield associations in arable areas, and it did significantly affect our kind of livestock areas and people who are relying on high water retaining crops, so specifically like silage, grasslands, maize crops, and so on and so forth. Whereas our arable crops, our winter wheats, they tended to get positively affected by this. So this is something that we can learn from, and something that we'll kind of have a better record of in the future. Then pest and disease, that's one of the most significant impacts in agriculture in the UK at the moment, because of that combined effect of the average increase in temperature. So we've got high moisture levels with an overall increase in temperature on an average basis, which means that the ability for things like the fleece stem beetle on oilseed rape, or yeasts and fungus such as rust on cereal crops, they are significantly increasing over the last 20-year period, and this is meaning that we are trying to come up with management methods to overcome those barriers. So there are some positives from climate change. Increased growing days in the UK. We've got an increased amount of growing days due to average temperature and early seasons, late seasons. So our seasonal growing ability has increased over the last 50 years. CO2 concentrations are also increasing, which impacts photosynthesis efficiencies. So these are some of the things that some of the agricultural research centres in the UK are looking a little bit more into, and trying to figure out ways of how we can utilise these benefits for to kind of overcome some of the negative effects. So then management solutions, of course, adaptation and mitigation plans, of which we're doing on this project, a huge ability to increase resilience on farm, allowing farmers to understand and monitor the effects and how they may overcome the effects of climate change, especially when it comes to saturation of water levels on land. That may include like mechanized solutions such as subsoiling, and then also your longer term solutions such as soil health and looking at your landscape in it as a whole system. So integrating your landscape, integrating different landscape mapping solutions such as agroforestry, field buffers, riparian zones, all those sort of things, and they all contribute to an overall increased resilience within agriculture. So yeah, please, if you have any questions, sorry if I've gone over time.
Thank you very much, Aaron. I was letting it go because I think it's really interesting to see the differences. The biggest difference, and for those who work on this for a long time, like I do, is that when you move north, you start to be more, let's say, comprehensive, and the issues become more broad. While when you move south, we tend to worry more about how we keep water and how we use it for irrigation, in this because it's so important for us. The irrigation is so important in terms of the agricultural development, that we focus a lot on that. Rodrigo, I'll ask you, we don't have much time, but two general questions. The first one is, after you hearing from these testimonies, if you'd like to add something in terms of relating to your own presentation. And the second one that I would like to ask is, when we talk about resilience and let's say the future and how do we invest to improve the whole system of water management, there are some actions, measures that we can do that do not necessarily cost money, needs investment, but most of them needs strong investments. So my question is, and maybe looking more at the south that you know better, if we have to put money on something, from storing to recycling to desalination to what should be our priorities in terms of investing in the water management system? So I'll pass you the word. Thank you.
Okay, very shortly. So the communications that were made were quite interesting, and I share your comment that I mean, it's interesting that in the south we focus a lot in irrigation. That's where our main constraint is lack of water, and so to find ways to provide water to the plants is our main concern. And so that's where irrigation, and currently in Portugal, the difference of added value of irrigated crop when compared to a rain-fed crop is huge. So the trend towards irrigation, I mean, we have to accept that will happen. Now, we need a lot of to do a lot of things. Obviously, the most important ones are to reduce, to be much more efficient. So we still have lots of losses in our irrigation systems, and we have to invest a lot in improving them. Most of our irrigation systems were built in the 50s and 60s, and so the infrastructures are now quite old. Some of them are still working on a gravitational principle, so water is not provided on a pressurized. So I mean, you need to retrofit all those infrastructures to pressurize and modern systems. So that's, I mean, that investment, I believe it's consensual to everyone. Now, where the debate comes is about if we are going to build large new dams, and that's I mean, they are costly, and how much, who should bear the costs? That's the issue there. And obviously, we have to recognize that when we build a new dam and we develop a new irrigation system, there's a lot of public benefits, because I mean that area is benefited, and there's a social and economic development there, and that part could probably be supported by the government. But then you have a lot of private benefits, and those private benefits have to contribute to the investment, and that's how you do it. It's the trick, and that's why I'm focusing a lot on the economic instruments. The price of water is very low, and in some cases in Portugal we are offering water at 5 cents to crops that can pay like 70 cents, which doesn't make any sense. While in others, I mean, obviously, but you cannot also increase the price of water, let's say, to 50 cents, because you will ruin the viability of other crops. And at a certain point, you'll have a very few crops that can pay more than 50 cents per water. So that model, that economic model, that's where you have to invest, to find ways to not only gather investment and to obtain investment so that we can support the new works, but also that we distribute the costs of those investments in an equitable way. That's something that we have to discuss and find a way to do it.
Okay, we were supposed to do the questions on the chat, but Jan, I will pass you the word if you can speak, put your comment in 30 seconds or not. You disappeared. You disappeared. Okay, no problem. So it's good because we finish on time. Maria, do you want to say some quick words to finish?
Yeah. You can leave your. Can you hear me? Yeah. No, they can. So just to finish, we will send you the recording. It will be published on the YouTube channel of Climate Farm Demo. But the idea is that we send you a short summary of what was discussed and the main key ideas. And since we want to gather your feedback and your ideas for future meetings, I will also send you forms for collecting interesting topics that you would like to hear about in this water management thematic area. And our next event will be focused on good practices on irrigation, on managing water sources, and on infrastructure level. It was a study developed by Consuli, and the date is not yet defined, but it was a teaser to let you know what our next event will be about. And thank you so much for joining. And
okay, just to thank you, Andras, thank you, Amanda, thank you, Aaron, and a special thank you to Professor Rodrigo Proença de Oliveira. It was a really nice start of the thematic, these thematic sessions that we will hold during the next few years. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for being here, and see you soon for the next sessions. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you for organizing that.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Obrigado.
Thank you. Goodbye.